It began like something out of a romantic novel, two people from very different worlds colliding in the quiet anonymity of a blind date. In the summer of 2016, Prince Harry, the beloved yet rebellious younger son of Princess Diana, met Meghan Markle, an American actress known for her role in Suits and her humanitarian spirit. A mutual friend arranged the meeting, and from the very first encounter, sparks flew. Harry later said he was beautifully surprised by Meghan, while she admitted she knew very little about the prince. That freshness allowed their connection to grow based on personality, not profile. Their romance grew quickly and privately. Just a few weeks after meeting, they took a trip to Botswana, a remote, magical getaway that would become a cornerstone of their bond. Under the stars, away from the media, their relationship deepened. But the moment their romance became public, the fairy tale was challenged. Meghan, a biracial American divorcee, was thrust into the harsh glare of the British tabloid spotlight. Harry, already wounded by the loss of his mother to a relentless press, was fiercely protective. In a rare move, he released a public statement condemning the media's wave of abuse and harassment against Meghan. Despite the pressure, love endured. In November 2017, they announced their engagement. The world watched with fascination as a new kind of royal couple stepped forward. Their wedding, held at Windsor Castle in May 2018, was a blend of British tradition and American soul. Meghan walked part of the way down the aisle alone, then met Prince Charles, who escorted her to the altar, a symbolic gesture of acceptance. Their ceremony included gospel choirs, a passionate sermon by Bishop Michael Curry, and elements of Meghan's heritage. It was a dazzling moment of unity and change. Soon after, they became the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. The birth of their first child, Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor, in 2019 brought joy, but also renewed media intrusion. The joy of new parenthood was overshadowed by an atmosphere of toxicity. Meghan later revealed she struggled with mental health during this period, feeling isolated and unheard. Behind palace walls, tensions simmered. Rumors of a rift between Harry and his brother, Prince William, grew louder. Stories of Meghan being difficult circulated relentlessly. In January 2020, the couple shocked the world by announcing they would step back from royal duties. Their departure, dubbed Megxit, was not just a logistical exit, but a symbolic break from the expectations of monarchy. The couple relocated to California, seeking financial independence and personal freedom. Critics saw it as betrayal, supporters saw courage. In 2021, their bombshell interview with Oprah Winfrey exposed long-held grievances, alleged racism within the royal institution, lack of support, and strained family relationships. Meghan spoke of suicidal thoughts. Harry revealed he felt trapped in the system. It was raw, emotional, and divisive. Since then, they forged a new life in Montecito. Through their Archwell Foundation, they've pursued media, philanthropy, and storytelling projects. They produced a Netflix documentary, launched a podcast, and signed deals with major companies. They welcomed a second child, Lilibet Diana, named in tribute to both Queen Elizabeth and Princess Diana. Yet their ties to the royal family remain complicated. They were not invited to certain royal events. Harry returned alone for his father's coronation. Meghan has remained largely absent from royal scenes, focused on building her identity outside the institution. Today, the Sussexes remain under a cloud of suspense. Some wonder if they'll ever reconcile with the royal family. Others question if their media ventures can sustain long-term influence. Amid rumors of career shifts, financial strain, and personal challenges, their bond remains a point of speculation. Are they still in love? Is the fairy tale fraying under pressure? Or is their story one of two people fighting against odds for the right to live freely? What is certain is that Harry and Meghan's love story redefined what it means to be royal in the 21st century. It is filled with passion, pain, rebellion, and resilience, A tale not of perfect harmony, but of real emotion. Whether it is a story still unfolding or a chapter nearing its end, it is, at its heart, a love story that dares to challenge tradition in pursuit of something more human. In recent years, the story of Harry and Meghan has evolved into something more layered. Less about glamour, more about grit. While many assumed their departure from royal life would mark a peaceful new chapter, it instead opened a door to new challenges. The public, once enchanted by their fairy tale, began to fracture. Some saw them as truth-tellers, finally exposing the cost of the crown. Others viewed them as opportunists, cashing in on royalty while criticizing it. Through it all, their unity, at least outwardly, remained constant. Yet behind the scenes, whispers of strain have surfaced. Harry's memoir Spare, released in 2023, reignited tension with his family. He laid bare childhood trauma, his grief over Diana, and his rocky relationship with William and Charles. While the book was a bestseller, it stirred controversy. Meghan, notably, kept a lower profile, sparking speculation about her comfort with the level of exposure. Observers noted a shift. She appeared more selective, more cautious. At events, body language experts dissected their every glance and gesture, hungry for signs of cracks. Professionally, the couple's ventures have had mixed results. Their Spotify deal ended abruptly, and some of their planned projects were quietly shelved. Still, they pressed on, trying to redefine their relevance beyond royal titles. Meghan teased a return to lifestyle branding, possibly reviving her old blog The Tig. Harry remained focused on Invictus and mental health causes. They hired new advisors, restructured their team, signs of a couple adjusting, recalibrating. Their critics called it flailing, their fans called it evolving. Emotionally, Harry often seems caught between two worlds, one foot in Montecito, the other still in Windsor's shadow. His frequent solo returns to the UK, funerals, coronations, brief court appearances, are often brief and somber. He's visibly more relaxed in the US, yet visibly wounded when asked about his father, his brother, or the institution he left behind. Meghan, meanwhile, remains a polarizing figure, praised for her poise and resilience, vilified by those who believe she dismantled something sacred. And yet, their love continues to serve as both shield and mirror. They lean into each other publicly, arms around waists, fingers intertwined, smiles whispered through the noise. But love under siege is never easy. Have they found a quiet strength in each other, or are they simply enduring the storm together, waiting for the next turn? Now, suspense lingers. Will reconciliation with the royal family ever truly happen, or has too much been said, too much lost? Will their American life stabilize into something sustainable and fulfilling, or will the weight of fame and pressure pull them apart? And more intimately, behind closed doors, does their love feel as revolutionary as it once did, or has the cost of carving their own path dimmed its shine? And so the next chapter unfolds, not with the fanfare of royal weddings or global interviews, but in the subtle rhythm of ordinary days. In Montecito, where ocean breezes soften the California sun, Harry and Meghan have tried to build something slower, quieter. School runs, backyard birthdays, weekend hikes. The kind of life that Harry, for so long trapped in the gilded cage of duty, had only imagined. For Meghan, it was a return to something familiar yet transformed, being a mother, a creator, a woman no longer defined by the palace or the press. Still, even in peace, shadows linger. Grief never truly leaves Harry. The loss of his mother, the loss of his role, even the fractured bond with William, each loss has its own weight. He has often said Meghan saved him. That she gave him not just love, but escape, a new script. But what happens when the rescue becomes routine? When the life you fought for demands its own sacrifices? Their love, once a rebellion, now faces the quiet test of time. Can it sustain not just against conflict, but in the long stretches of normalcy? Meghan, too, walks her own emotional terrain. Once praised for her voice, her causes, her style, she's learned how quickly admiration turns to attack. The silence of royal life was suffocating, the noise of public reinvention exhausting. Some say she is steering their ship now, more measured, more strategic. Others wonder if she longs for the simplicity of acting, or something even simpler, to no longer be a symbol of anything at all. A woman, not a duchess. A mother, not a headline. A partner, not a phenomenon. And yet, together, they keep writing their story. Each public appearance now feels like a coded message, a glance, a gesture, a matching outfit, a silent defiance of the narrative written about them. Their children, Archie and Lilibet, remain largely unseen, protected by choice. But in interviews, Harry speaks of being the father he never had, of bedtime stories and laughter, of bicycles and freedom. It's the life Diana wanted for him, one without flashbulbs and fear. He's trying to give that to his own. There is an ache in the distance between them and the crown. Though he once vowed to protect Meghan at all costs, there is still a boy inside him who mourns the love of a family that often couldn't give it back. Will there be a reunion? The birth of a new king, his father, offered a chance. But it came and went in brief, awkward moments. The ice between brothers remains largely untouched. Time may heal, or it may only deepen the divide. Suspense, now, is quieter but more poignant. Not the suspense of drama, but of life itself. Will their marriage deepen or drift? Will their purpose crystallize or fade? Will they be remembered for what they ran from, or for what they built afterward? The world watches still, less with judgment now, more with curiosity. Because theirs is not just a royal story, it is a human one, messy, bold, and deeply emotional. But the most intimate part of their story may be unfolding now, far from the noise, in the quiet decision-making of two people navigating middle life together. No longer newlyweds, no longer fleeing, Harry and Meghan are in the era where love either grows roots, or withers. The stage lights have dimmed somewhat. The controversies no longer burn with daily fire, but embers remain. And in that softer light, they seem to be asking themselves new questions. Not just about survival, but about legacy. Meghan has begun edging her way back into creative expression. A new lifestyle brand was teased, something with hints of the TIG, a space for storytelling, cooking, mindful living. It is not just about business, but identity. She appears more in control, less reactive. Where once her voice trembled on camera, now she picks her moments carefully, choosing depth over drama. She is no longer trying to fit into the palace, nor fight against it. She is quietly becoming her own foundation. Harry, meanwhile, remains the soul of their emotional journey. He still speaks with raw vulnerability, often drawing from childhood pain, military service, or fatherhood. The public watches him with a different lens now. Less a prince, more a man weathered by honesty. He has found his voice as a speaker on trauma, mental health, and veterans' recovery, especially through the Invictus Games. But there are moments when his eyes flicker, when grief, exile, or maybe even regret, pass through him like a shadow. He misses the military life, the brotherhood. He misses family, even if he won't admit it. Their partnership has evolved too. Once inseparable in every public appearance, they now take turns stepping into the spotlight. Sometimes Meghan attends events solo. Sometimes Harry returns to the UK alone. Not in opposition, but in rhythm, in balance. It's no longer about proving unity, but living it. Still, the public speculates endlessly, are they growing apart? Or have they simply settled into the quiet, real shape of lasting companionship? Even their home, a luxurious yet unpretentious estate in Montecito, tells a story. They've created a place where chickens roam and redwoods sway, a home filled not with palace gold, but with the echo of children's laughter and handwritten notes on the fridge. It's the life Diana dreamed of for her sons. A life of choice. And still, there is suspense. The kind that lingers in every successful couple who has walked through fire. Will this new season bring them peace, or more unexpected storms? They've been everything together. Lovers, parents, rebels, exiles. But what will they be when the world stops watching? When their children grow older and ask questions? When the calls from publishers fade and the headlines move on? And now, they stand at a crossroads not marked by crisis, but by choice. The crises have come and gone. Waves that once crashed loudly now lap at the edges of their lives, more distant but never gone. What lies ahead is no longer about escape or survival, but about shaping something lasting. They are no longer fighting to be heard. Now, they are trying to decide what they truly want to say. Their children are beginning to grow into identities shaped in part by legacy, in part by freedom. Archie, curious and bold, already shows signs of a child raised in two worlds. He hears stories of castles but lives among hummingbirds and sunsets. Lilibet, named for a queen but born into a home that values emotion over tradition, will one day ask what her name meant, and her parents will tell her the whole truth, because that is the way they live now, unfiltered, imperfect, real. Sometimes, the greatest tension in their story now comes not from public battles, but private rhythms. Harry still speaks like a man in search of healing. Meghan, like a woman trying to reclaim agency. And yet healing and agency do not always arrive on the same path, or at the same pace. Love must stretch to hold that. They've both changed in these years, not away from each other, but into fuller versions of themselves. And that too can bring growing pains. What do you do when your partner is no longer the same as the one you began with, but you still believe in the love that started it all? They've become symbols of something larger, even as they try to step away from symbolism. For many, they are still a mirror, of interracial love, of choosing self-worth over tradition, of modern parenting, of forgiveness attempted and forgiveness withheld. Some days, it weighs on them. Other days, they carry it like armor. And on rare, honest days, they probably wish they could lay it all down and just be Harry and Meghan, no titles, no narratives, just two souls who found each other and chose to stay. And yet, the story continues. Not in the glare of a spotlight, but in the softness of kitchen table conversations, of bedtime songs, of glances exchanged during silent pauses. That's where love lives now. Less in speeches, more in the unspoken. Fewer declarations. More quiet acts of presence. They have learned, sometimes painfully, that true love is not always loud. Sometimes it is simply staying close when the noise fades. There may still be surprises. A new project. A reconciliation. A return to the UK, or perhaps something no one expects. Something private, entirely their own. But wherever their path winds, what remains is this: a love that outlasted the crown, the headlines, and the storm. A love that dared the world to question what a royal story could be. And as the years stretch forward, their love begins to take on the quiet dignity of endurance. It is no longer the feverish urgency of escape or the defiant thrill of rebellion. It is steadier now, like an old tree that bends in storms but does not fall. They are learning that true intimacy is not just built in the whirlwind of beginnings or the fire of shared struggle, but in the slow, unseen moments where you stay, when it's not easy, not glamorous, but still deeply worth it. Harry often retreats into reflection. You can see it in the way he talks about legacy. Not just his mother's or the monarchy's, but his own. He wants his children to know he tried to break cycles. That he took the pain of a lonely boy walking behind a coffin and turned it into something softer, something better for the next generation. Sometimes that means keeping distance from his homeland. Sometimes, it means returning to it with a braver heart, even if only for a day. But it is Meghan who anchors him to the present. She reminds him that healing is not just remembering, but living. That joy is not guilt. For Meghan, motherhood seems to have brought a deeper calm. The sharp edges that once sparked fierce public debate now seem to have rounded into something more graceful, more grounded. She rarely responds to criticism now. She doesn't need to. The life she has built speaks for her. She gardens. She writes. She leans into friendships that are quiet and loyal. There is no place here, but there is peace. And that is a greater price than any crown. Together, they have stopped trying to convince the world of their truth. They have already told it, in interviews, in books, in tears shed on camera and off. Now, they are simply living it. There are days they surely miss what was, family, heritage, familiarity. There are days when choices must feel heavy. But they made those choices not in the absence of love, but because of it. And love, real love, never promises simplicity. It only promises presence. Archie and Lilibet are growing up not in the shadow of Buckingham Palace, but in the sunlight of the California coast, where they learn about compassion before protocol, emotion before image. One day, they'll read the stories told about their parents. Some are cruel. Some are beautiful. Some are wildly untrue. But what will matter most is what they saw at home. Two people who fought not just for each other, but for the kind of world they wanted their children to grow up in. One with boundaries, honesty, and room to breathe. And maybe that's the most profound transformation of all. Not just lovers or royals or parents, but builders. Builders of a new kind of life. A new kind of marriage. A new way of defining success, not by applause, but by alignment. They are no longer trying to win anyone's approval. They are simply trying to live a life that feels honest when they're alone together in the dark, after the lights go out and the children are sleeping. And as the seasons turn and the noise of the world begins to drift further behind them, Harry and Meghan find themselves entering a chapter of quiet legacy. The long stretch where the heart of a life is not measured in headlines but in the gentler rhythm of days well lived. They are still young, yes, but age has already touched their souls through experience, loss, and love deeply tested. Now, they begin to think not just about who they are, but what they will leave behind. Their relationship continues to shift. Less dependent, more interdependent. They no longer need to speak for each other. They understand with a glance, a pause, the way one reaches for the other's hand in a crowd without thinking. There's grace in that. The initial heat of their romance has mellowed into a fire that doesn't flare so wildly, but never goes out. There is a comfort in knowing the person beside you has seen the best and worst of you, and stayed anyway. Sometimes they look back, briefly. On the wedding, the speeches, the public scrutiny, the bitter silences with family, the moments they felt alone even in front of millions. But mostly now, they look forward. There's talk of new foundations, new stories they want to tell through film, books, or their children's voices. Meghan dreams of writing again, not as a royal, not as a celebrity, but simply as a woman who has lived something worth sharing. Harry still envisions his mother's compassion shaping the future. He sees it in Lilibet's gentle kindness, in Archie's protective instincts. They've both spoken of service before, and that thread continues. More quietly now, less performative, more personal. They sponsor local charities anonymously. They show up where they are needed, not just where they'll be seen. They mentor quietly, support those who've been silenced. Their fame, once a furnace, has cooled into a spotlight they can move in and out of on their own terms. And still, always, there is love. Not performative love. Not the kind built for magazine covers or royal portraits. But the kind that lingers in the kitchen at midnight over tea. The kind that shows up when a child is sick or when old fears return out of nowhere. The kind that does not demand to be seen to be real. That is the love they live now. They grow older. Their faces change. The children grow taller. The questions get deeper. And somewhere down the line, perhaps 20 years from now, they will sit on a porch, perhaps in Montecito, perhaps somewhere new. And they will talk about that whirlwind time when the world watched them burn down an ancient script and build a quieter one of their own. They will look at each other and know, not everyone understands, but they do. They always did. And so, we close today's chapter on a love story that dared to step beyond the pageantry, beyond the expectation, beyond the myth. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle did not choose the easy road. They chose each other. Again and again. Through scrutiny, silence, applause, and absence, they kept choosing. What began as a modern fairy tale became something more enduring, a testament to what love looks like when it is stripped of fantasy, pressed by fire, and still survives. In a world that too often trades sincerity for spectacle, they built something real. Not perfect, but real. They found home in each other, made family in a place of their own making, and redefined not just what it means to be royal, but what it means to be brave. They walked through storms so their children might walk in sunlight. And one day, long from now, when the noise has faded and their names are carved more gently into history, someone will say, they loved out loud. They loved with truth. And they loved until it became the life they had always hoped for. Not on a throne, but in each other's arms. That is where we leave them for now, not at the beginning, not at the end, but in the beautiful, unfinished middle of a story that still beats with heart. Shall we continue another time? If you enjoy the video, please like, subscribe and share.